All right, then let's get started with talking about taking in feedback from users at scale. So the first question, of course, is why should we care about getting feedback from our users? So especially the large ones, the big organizations that are using our data to build applications and services. So a lot of the ultimate users of our data have no idea who we are. They have probably never heard my mic. Oh, yes. Give me a second. Is this better? More. Okay, how about this? Does not sound different. Okay. How about this? No different. Damn it. And this? That's better. Okay. How about this? Okay. Yes, we are placing a picture on the wall. Okay, is this good? Cool. All right. Still a bit crackly. Okay. I am not sure what's happening. I'm sorry. Anyway, so why should we care? The ultimate users of our data probably don't know us. They've probably never heard of us. They might get an answer from their digital personal assistant that to a general knowledge question and be happy with that, and that's fine, right? But for us, it means that they can't and that they don't come to us to help us maintain our data, which is, of course, a problem because we have so much data to maintain and take care of. But these large users, these large organizations who are using our data, do have the resources to help here, and they do have an obligation, in my opinion, to help here. To maintain our data. And the good thing is they're also willing to do that. But there is a problem, which is that they don't right now. And they don't because, among other things, we do not have clearly defined expectations of how they should do that. How do we want them to contribute? What do we want them to contribute? And we don't have the right tools and processes in place to take in that feedback, which can potentially be a lot. All those improvements, we don't have good tools and processes in place to work with it. So that brings us to many open questions that I think I would love to hear from you about, which is what kind of feedback do we want from them? Who do we want it from? How do we want it? What do we think we need in terms of tools and processes and guidelines to make this work for us? And what do we need to develop? Yeah, and with that, I would love to open the space already for your thoughts and ideas. If you want, feel free to come on the mic or type in the chat as you wish. Adam was saying that he would love even just some indication that folks think there might be something wrong with the value. Not even with any detail. So they would just know this is something someone should look at. Mm-hmm. They were saying, as a simple option, could we have counters of times something has been said wrong for each entity and tool? Mm-hmm. So just knowing that 5,000 people have told Google this is probably wrong, something like that. And Aisha is saying, for super heavy users, I think the obvious way is to help financially maintain the infrastructure that holds the data. And another way would be to help with expertise with data itself, how better to store, arrange, maintain it, and so on. Yes, that's definitely something that we should be very interested in. Toto is saying my classification gadget has a feature that allows a user to report a problem on instance of statements by posting a message on a talk page. It's a bit primitive. Do you have a link to that? That sounds interesting.
Benedict, please speak up.
Hi, Lydia. Hi again. So, feedback, in terms of feedback, one feedback I have from my community as using adding content on Wikidata is that sometimes when we host events, we usually have people being blocked from even creating accounts. So probably having these facing these global blocks and that has something to do with IP, and that happens a lot. So I don't know if there is a way to mitigate that, to have, because these guys are new, and when you imagine trying to educate or get new people and then they are being blocked just before making any edit, it kind of like a drawback for them. So I don't know if there's a way for us to go past that.
Yeah, that's something we definitely should look at. Can you maybe send me an email and then we can look at that in detail?
I'm not sure I heard you clearly. There's sort of like a background noise I'm hearing.
Sorry, I was saying that's definitely something we should look at, and if you could send me an email about it, I can have a look at it.
Oh, great. Thank you so much.
Sure. TBT is saying we have a feedback. If we had a feedback system, it would be very useful to get an anonymous user ID to be able to flag great feedback providers and bad ones. Ooh, yes. So you're thinking if, for example, someone in a Google Knowledge panel says this is wrong, that Obama was not born in the US or stuff like that, then we want to have some anonymous ID to be able to discard more of their feedback. And thank you for the link, Tom. So do people have ideas of what type of feedback we want? And I was saying just knowing that something might be wrong with a statement would already be useful, and if we could get more than that, would we want more?
Ooh, I think I found the microphone button. Yeah, I think it would be really nice to just start with anything, right? I think even the simplest of flags, which is like, there's something wrong with this item, or even the next level of detail, there's something wrong with this statement, would give us something to work with. I'm sure in the longer term, more detail would be useful, but I guess probably getting any more detail is probably hard, especially if it's going to be like written words, like Google users submitting data to Google and then them passing that over to us. I don't know, it sounds like a privacy nightmare.
That's an interesting aspect of the whole challenge, yeah. And TBT is saying that if we could get correction suggestion, it would be even better. Yes. So, but for these large reusers, do you think we only want suggestions or feedback from them, or do we want more from them? In the sense that would there be cases where we consider asking them to edit directly, for example, or letting their users edit directly? Or do we think we can do all of that ourselves? David is saying, I'm wondering to what extent large users also have a responsibility to provide a feedback channel from their users. I know there's no way to force them, but if there's a low threshold technical way to connect their system to ours, maybe some of them would actually provide a way for their users to connect to Wikidata for feedback. Yeah, and this is a bit the tricky part, right? We could potentially open the fire hose because there's so many users they have, and there's only so much we probably can deal with right now. And fire hose sounds bad. Yes, it does sound bad, but that's the but then we have to think about how much feedback do we want and can we deal with? Because I also don't want us to be in the position where we get a gazillion of feedback and we just can't deal with it, and it's depressing for everyone. That's also not good. So he's asking, they probably already have some kind of feedback mechanism, right? Yes, they do. So for example, if you do a Google search and you find a mistake in the knowledge panel, you can click to report an error, and then they have a system where you can explain what the error is and why it's wrong. But of course, not all of that is about data that's coming from Wikidata. There's other data sources, and not all of that is actually meaningful feedback, right? Sometimes it's just opinionated people, for example, who want to randomize a knowledge panel. And we know that how it goes on Wikidata as well. But yeah, most of them definitely do have some mechanism for getting feedback from their users to them. But it doesn't yet flow back to us if it's about data that's coming from Wikidata. Mark was saying, I think it would be great to talk to Google's knowledge panel owners and see if the feedback mechanisms can be propagated to Wikidata too. Yeah, and some of those conversations we've had, right? And it's also, of course, not just about Google. It's basically about all of the big ones. But Google is easy to remember and imagine. And basically, there's some general willingness to do that, but it's a lot of feedback, which is part of the. Like I think we have to wrap our head around how much can we deal with, how much do we want to deal with, and what kind of tools do we need to make this work, right? Because I don't think we can just ask them to give us the feedback they have, and then not have the time and resources we need to actually work with that. It would be a bit depressing. And then the question is what kind of tools do we need? Okay, let's say in an ideal world, we get the minimum and probably easiest thing we talked about, which is just there's something wrong with this statement. We don't know what, we don't know anything else, but we know there's probably something wrong with this statement and someone should look at it. How do you think it would be useful to get to us? So he's saying, if it's encoded somewhere that the source of the data is Wikidata, I wonder if suggested changes to info with Wikidata as the source can trigger changes in Wikidata or a ticket or something. Yeah, that's the thing. Do we want them to make those changes directly or not? And if we have tickets or something similar, it might be a bit much, but maybe that's a start. I don't really want to talk more about what you mean with a string. Adam, do you want to talk more about what you mean with a string?
Sure. I mean, I just love it to be a constant. Like, I have no idea how much feedback these sorts of reusers already get, but it makes sense to. I think it makes sense for them as well to give it to us as soon as possible, because then we can do something about it as soon as possible. I think anything that has like a few months or years worth of like delay is probably not so useful anymore. But if you can find out on the same day, ooh, that'd be good.
Yeah, true. And TBD is saying, I believe that the input will be quite similar to what the mismatch finder provides. Yes, that is at least part of the idea of the mismatch finder, right? That we can also start at least dealing with some of it. And we'll have to see. Yeah. And then they were saying maybe the first step is to ask around to the users how often they actually get feedback and how much is left after the first level of vandalism spam detection. We assume that it's a fire hose, but are you sure about this? I'm reasonably sure, but yes, let's ask again. Mm-hmm. And TomTom saying, what about automated feedback? For example, if someone deprecates a statement with some database source, it should be possible to automatically generate a report to that database with a channel if one is known. Mm-hmm. And GPT is saying for both the mismatch finder and this provider, there would be high quality sources and likely very bad ones. Yeah, that's part of the problem. There would probably need to be some prioritization, both in terms of what are the items and statements we care about the most, and what type of issues do we care about the most. All right, we are almost at the end of the session. Thank you so much for your input so far. I would love to talk to you more about all of these things. If you're happy to chat, please let me know. Yeah, then we can continue the conversation.